So much for joining us today. My name is Vicki Townsend, and I'm the founder and president of Divorce Right. And we provide training for HR professionals and company supervisors. And we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through it, but to the company they work for. And our coaches have a unique perspective on divorce. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce, and they can handle even the highest conflict of cases with compassion and professionalism. Our coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based on their goals and their expectations. So if you're an HR benefits manager or an HR benefits provider or consultant, please reach out to us and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. And a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we will post a link to that at the end of this broadcast so that you can grab those. And I want to introduce you to Paulette Rigo. She is not only my friend, she is my colleague, and she is an incredible certified divorce coach and mediator. And she's one of the best in the business and is the director of coaching and case management here at Divorce Right. And today we are talking about divorcing a narcissist with Tracy Malone. So let me tell you a little bit about Tracy. Tracy is an author, a speaker, an educator, and international narcissistic abuse and divorce coach. She is a thriver of abuse herself and the founder of narcissistabusesupport.com and global resource that reaches millions of survivors. Tracy wrote her best-selling book, Divorcing a Narcissist, You Can't Make This Shit Up, as well as 32 healing journals. Tracy has a popular YouTube channel and a podcast that has reached millions of survivors. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you ladies.
This is a big conversation we're having today because the narcissist is that word is all over the place. So Paulette, I'm going to let you get us started.
Oh, thank you. Well, Tracy, you know how much I respect your work and your book. I recommend it to everyone. I don't profess to be an expert in everything, but I do know people that are. So let's just face it, NPD seems to be everywhere these days, right? I mean, I can't go anywhere without hearing about it. So what are the statistics with the diagnosis of NPD or narcissistic personality disorder? Got to love all the acronyms in this world. And how often does it show up in divorce?
Wow. So that's a really big question. And you're absolutely right. I mean, at least twice a day, someone gets on the screen and says, I just thought narcissism was a buzzword until I looked at your checklist and went, oh my God, that's exactly what's happening to me. Right. So it is being talked a lot about. And so therefore bringing it into the vision of someone to actually find these answers. So I did some numbers for you ladies because I have a little part in my book that really kind of highlights this, but I went and looked at the population of the United States in 2023, which is 340 million people, right? Now, what we need to know is that the stats of how many narcissists there are in the country are 5 to 8%. And I say, who the heck is counting them? Because I don't know any narcissist that signed up and said, let me be counted. Right. So I think that's a really low number. We have to keep that in mind. And then just so people know, 75% of the numbers that are being tallied are men, which is even weirder because they don't go to therapy. So, I mean, it's kind of like, we're getting a distorted number. But if we look at that number in proportion to the country, that's 17 to 27 million narcissists in the country. But it's not the number of narcissists that we need to worry about. It's the victims, right? How many people do they affect? How many things, their kids, their job, their this? I put in my book 10. And that's really low because it's often a trail of destruction behind them. So if we just go on 10, guess what? That's 170 million victims, just 270 victims, which is like half of the country. So if we think about that and we think about those people going through a divorce, most employers will have half of their employees that are going through a divorce will go through one of these high conflict situations. That's huge numbers. We can't ignore the victim count because the narcissist count can't be real.
Absolutely. It's so scary. It's so scary because I think all of us on this call today have been have been involved with that kind of a relationship. And here's just the three of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tracy, it's not going away. Like, if anything, I'm not sure if you'd heard, I've done a little research on it myself too, but is it because of the prevalence of social media and the selfies and the whole, I don't know, everything is 24-hour news cycle, and people are more reading about it or talking about it or writing about it, and it's getting more conversational, but people are becoming more aware of that lack of empathy and that inability to see another human being as an equal. It's now like using human beings as I don't know, objects, right, instead of human beings. And and then you throw in the divorce, the D word, and now you've got the complexity of the process and all the rules and regulations and compliance and enforcement, and they don't like that. They just aren't fans of compliance and rules. And as I've learned, you hear the word rules and have to and meeting and process, and it gets them, crazy. So I don't want to go off on a tangent, but why do you think it's becoming so? Is it awareness, or is it really rising? Like, why are we talking about it so much?
I think I think we are raising the awareness level. Like, even from when I started a YouTube channel 8 years ago, there were a handful, maybe 24, maybe let's go 50 people that were talking about it on YouTube all the time.
Sure.
And now there's thousands and thousands. And
Mhm.
the people who have been around, like Dr. Romney, she gets 100,000 views in an hour, right? It's like the level of education. And I've talked to, say, Bill Eddy about this, who he's like the father of, narcissism and just high conflict, everything. Right. And he said to me, Tracy, it's the awareness and it's, the education. There's still a lot to go. We still have to educate our therapists better, educate our courts, our judges, our police. We have a big job ahead of us, but at least the victims are getting something that makes them validate what the heck is going on and who they're dealing with.
Right.
They're not crazy, right?
No.
Yeah.
Now, the diagnosis of NPD is not common. I mean, to get that actual label or diagnosis is, I think it was something like 2.7% of the, there we go. Right. Yeah. The label. I love you with that. I need one of those. And in my world as a mediator, when I'm working with a couple, it's different. I can easily see when somebody's not cooperating. I can I can hear it in their voice, and whether they're caucusing or they're in the same room, I can still get that, like, whoa. But if I'm coaching somebody through it, and it's not uncommon where somebody just drops the word, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. And I have to step back because I'm not a licensed clinical social worker. I don't diagnose people. That isn't my lane. And I'm not the first to say, oh yeah, they're a narcissist. Oh yeah, definitely. We don't, I mean, I don't do that, or I try not to. Sometimes they're so convinced. And there are a lot of diagnoses, which now we want to go in. But what are some of the signs that are the telltale litmus test? Like, if we were to make a checklist for people, what would be on the checklist?
Well, the first thing I would say, the checklist from the DSM-5, right, which is how people diagnose those therapists you were talking about, go for that check, check, check. They've got those things, right? And they're grandiose, self-importance, exaggerate achievements, believe they're special. Those are dumb. I have said it before. That doesn't describe the girth of what horror and evil that they do to their spouses, right? I broke it down. I took those and I'm like, yeah, we'll mention that they're there. But the real factoids are what we have to realize is they're compulsive liars, right? They're going to build a victim story at the hands of the real victim, and they'll do it coming out of the gate. So they call that card first. Well, you can't call me a victim because you're a victim. It becomes this game where they're using it against them. But when the victim who has been enduring, living in a hell, if you could, with this narcissist constantly, and all of a sudden the tables are flipped, and the projection that there are the narcissist, or they're the bad parent, or they're this, it puts the victims into PTSD. And this is an important thing because employers have to realize the cause and effect of what's happening to them. Like if they're in PTSD, they're not going to be working really well for you, right? So the lies, the false allegations in a normal divorce, they don't accuse you of stealing money falsely, being a bad parent, calling child protective services, having you arrested. I've had so many people committed because the narcissist is trying to show the world, look, I'm the healthy one. Look, they went to the mental institution, and child protectives has been out 17 times. It's not once, it's always over the top. Like they didn't get the answer the first time, so they fight and they do it again and they do it again just to say, oh, come to the, judge, here's 15 times. Child protective services don't give them any custody, right? So it's a game. It is a game to narcissists, and they have to win. The smear campaigns also destroy the victim. And this is where they turn their family against them, their church people against them, their neighbors against them. There is no one they can turn to, and they are isolated, they are scared, and they can't work. They can't get their work done, much less the divorce stuff and the work stuff, because they're so fearful, and nobody will talk to them. They've been isolated and abandoned, if you would. A narcissist also uses their kids as weapons in the divorce. And this, again, the non-narcissist parent, I'll just say Mama Bear wants to fight for her kids. And like, that's not true. I never did that. They did that. And it becomes a tit for tat, which means it gets thrown away and nobody cares, right? So,
yeah.
Just using the kids. All narcissists hide money. They deliberately puts the victim into fear. How will I survive? What will I do? How when you've got those primal instinct fears of, I don't know where I'll live, I don't know how I'll pay a lawyer, I don't know how I'll survive, how could you possibly get your work done? You can't, right? So it is absolutely essential to know their tactics, not on the DSM-5 of their description, but what they do, the hurtful thing, the stonewalling, all of the different things that they do to make the divorce into the most high conflict ones that courts have ever seen. My divorce was called the most tortured in our town's history.
Oh my
So I was
goodness.
like, thank you. That's a really good title.
And if I can just interject, the one thing that the narcissists are is very charming. And that's part of the problem, because they are, they can put on this mask, right, of the normal one, right, and have the ability to become so charming, which is part of the problem in the court system, because they can charm the pants off of the judge, and the next thing you know, they've got full custody of their children, which they don't really care about. And and it's to watch it happen and not have the courts being really super aware of how manipulating these people can be is very scary.
Yeah. And that charm is also what the public sees. That's why the neighbors believe them. The church people believe them, right? It is a very dangerous thing. This charm is fake. And as soon as the door closes, the weapons come out, right? And so it's hard to look past that. And often because of that charm, when we have people with GALs, which are parent coordinator kind of entities that could be called into it, the victim looks like they're crazy because they're sitting there going, and this happened, and this happened. And that's why a coach comes and regulates you, so that you can be prepared to go into those meetings without sounding like the crazy one. Everything's happening is crazy, so you sound like it. So helping them get past those boundaries that can make a better appearance to one of these coordinators helps them get their children, which brings them peace and calms them down so that they can work a little bit better. If they're afraid their kids are going to be taken away from them tomorrow, how can they work?
Exactly. Can you speak? Do you know anything about the brain patterns of a narcissist? Are you familiar with that?
Not exactly. No. Can't say.
There's been a study that shows that I've read about, and if you can even Google the brain images of a narcissist versus somebody that's not, and there are parts of their brain that are not developed. And my understanding is that it's somewhere between, where your left eye and your left ear kind of meet, and that's where empathy is created at that part of the brain. And because when we're children, we're all narcissists, right? Where we're babies, you have to be a narcissist to survive. It's a survival mechanism. But around the ages of 2, that part of your brain begins to develop.
Wow.
And that's why they believe that between the ages of 2 and 7, that some sort of catastrophic something happened to that child that impeded the development of that area of the brain. And it's where empathy resides. So you need empathy for love, but you also need empathy for guilt. That's why they feel no guilt about what they're doing to their children, to their spouse, to their employer, to nothing. They don't care. And they look with their charm and their ability to present, they look as though they care very much, but there's nothing there. There is absolutely nothing there. Well, do you have any stories? First of all, did you get through the list? I know we've
Yeah,
been
that was my most important things. There's a million. We could talk all day, as you all know.
Yeah. Well, do you have any particular stories that you can recall about how this impacts someone at their work?
Sure. I mean, besides their actual performance not being up to par and not being able to do the tasks that they're assigned to, I remember going through my divorce, and this one was 20 years ago, and I worked for Priceline.com, and we had something happen with my divorce that changed the course of how Priceline had to do business and how they had to protect themselves. Can I tell you that story?
Please, that'd be great.
So we had an underground garage, but it didn't have a door, or a lock, or a gate, or anything. We just, we were on a new company. We were babies. And so I had my parking space. And one night after work, I was going out with a whole bunch of friends because I was blocked from going home to my kid, and he had him for the night. So I was going out with friends. And one of them was like, didn't know how to get there. So he was going to follow me. So he's kind of waiting, and I pull out, and he's on the phone with me, and he's like, there was somebody sitting across from your car waiting for you. I think it was weird. Nobody just sits in their car. Let's watch. Turn lanes, change. I was being followed. Thank God I had someone behind me that was telling me on the phone, turn left. Let's see if they follow you. Okay, where would we go? Would we go right? Let's go left. Let's change. And sure enough, I'm being followed, right? So the police were called. It was intervention. We called the police. We're like, okay, we'll be at this block, and they caught him, right? It was a private investigator that my husband had hired. While that's not as scary as someone else, it was still creepy and scary. And from that point on, Priceline had to install gates. We had to have key cards. There was much more security of risk. They didn't protect me in the garage, and they had to act on it. So besides, narcissists sending sheriffs, police, people to come and get them at work, stopping employees from going to work is really common. Hiding their keys, not letting them go. There's so many things that affect your employee's performance. If she can't find her keys, then how's she going to get there? If the other parent was supposed to take care of the children, and suddenly they're not even home, and they're dumped with children. They were supposed to be at work. This is the kinds of things that can happen, and they're all too common. They disrupt the workplace. They embarrass and shame the victim because they're sitting there, and all of a sudden there's a sheriff, and all these people are in the lobby, and everyone's watching. It's a horrifically scary experience. And again, that makes working a little bit harder every day.
Yeah. And it sounds like your employer, when, you say, I can't find my keys, I can't leave.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're being irresponsible, right?
Right.
They're making you look like the person that has the problem. Oh, she loses her keys all the time. This is the way she is. This is why she shouldn't have the kids. This
Mm-hmm.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's just another way of controlling that person. And then that whole charm of, see, I've told you,
Mm-hmm.
I've been living with this my whole life, when they're actually creating it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is the problem.
Yeah.
Well, we did have somebody ask about talking about coercive control. Do you have some comments on that?
Well, coercive control is sort of the legal term for emotional abuse, if you would, right? And it's kind of coming up. It's always been there, and not all states have it. It's always sort of been there. I have a video out there. I interviewed a police detective in charge of our domestic violence area here in Boulder, Colorado, and she's like, "We've always had the coercive control rules. It's just how do we apply those to the narcissistic stuff, especially what Vicki just said. They're in denial. Oh, I didn't hide the keys. Oh, she did it. Or blah, blah, blah. It's finger pointing, and then the cop is sitting there going, I don't know what to do. Who's telling the truth? And it gets really, really sticky in the weeds. There's a lot about, we could talk again for that for weeks. Coercive control is really the legal term for what is happening. And not all places have it, but if they have it, it's hard for the police. And I've been at domestic violence conferences with police and with detectives and with all these people. And they're like, how do I know? How am I supposed to know? And I went to the police in the Boulder area, and I'm like, can I train them? Can I teach them so they know? And the DA said to me, well, we love your help, but why don't you help the victims? They're really not moving towards education. And even when I'm at that domestic violence conference, I am meeting, jailers, I'm meeting FBI, I'm meeting sheriffs, I'm meeting cops. And they're like, you know what? We get a domestic violence call. I take the foot off the gas and they just slow down because someone else will get there first. And that is a horrible thing. But, domestic violence is an all day process, and it's a lot of work, and they don't know who. So they're put in the middle without the education, and that's not fair to the victim, who will then look like the crazy one. Oh my God, they just did this. And the other one's like, well, I don't know why she's acting that way. The calm and the charm, right? And so it is a very difficult situation. And coercive control is highly involved in all these situations.
Yeah.
I'm glad you used that term too, Tracy, because I don't know if it's an actual legal term, but it is definitely used, coercive control, that term, more often than not in court.
Yeah.
I recommend that clients or anybody not ever use the term narcissistic. It's sort of the kiss of death to use that term. Pardon that expression. That might be a harsh term, but I would never suggest doing that. But coercive control is still, it implies entitlement. It implies exploitation. It implies lack of empathy. It implies evil, manipulative game playing and control, right? Just in the word coercive, if you define coercive, that means somebody's manipulating, right? And I get a lot of the questions, how do I get away from them? How do I get away from them, right? It's the nerves, the anxiety that is bubbling up and that getting away from them, but yet still having to co-parent with somebody that doesn't want to co-parent, which is always going to be a juggling act of that. And then, of course, not wanting to comply with child support, equitable division of assets, and spousal support. A normal, I hate that word normal, but we're going to go with it, divorce means that the couple can make decisions together, right? We have decisions to make about who's making decisions. Hopefully we're doing that together. In the unlikely event that we can't, we're going to try to do that through a tiebreaker. And then what's the sleeping schedule? Where do they sleep? What's the schedule? Child support is easy. That's all based on gross monthly income. And then how do we divide what we own? How do we divide what we owe? And is spousal support an issue? And basically divorce is easy. But when you have a spouse that doesn't like to help cooperate, make decisions together, follow the rules, it's always a game. I hate that word game, but
it is a game.
Process. It's a game, right?
To them it is.
How do we do this together? Because they don't want to do anything together. So you either have to be strong enough and resilient enough and have enough courage and skills, and a little documentation doesn't hurt. That's a little sarcastic there, a little documentation, but it's such a hard thing. And then you ask that person to go to work. Oh my.
Yeah.
That working. It's so hard to keep your wits about you when you're dealing with that whole situation. It's hard. Yeah.
So with that said, as we start to wrap this up, what recommendations can you give to an employer that may have an employee going through something like this? Maybe some of the things we've talked about today are starting to create a little awareness. What are some things that an employer can do to support this employee?
To me,
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, yeah. So, you know, if you think about what the employee that is going through this, who is the victim of a narcissist, is going through, there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's anxiety, there's depression, there's hopelessness, there's triggers that haunt them all day long, right? They can't excel in their job with this, but getting someone to help them, to coach them, to regulate them, to, you know, give them the extra support that they need by getting someone that could teach them to just lower the temperature, this empowering type of coaching, and maybe some legal aid services, maybe some more work from home options, maybe giving them a slack on a deadline, or having someone help them if they're not in that situation where they can get it done, but there's a deadline, right? Bring people in, be empathetic to what they're going through, because this is not like any other kind of situation. And, you know, I teach people how to regulate themselves so they can sleep. Now they can work. So many people that are going through this type of divorce sleep in the den, on the sleep sofa, in their daughter's like corner of her room, hiding. They're not safe. And so, you know, for you to have expectations, and they're not going to come in and tell you, yeah, you know, I have to lock myself with bolts into my room at night. They're not going to tell you those details, but expect that they are, and understand and have that empathy, right? When they have triggers, it takes them down. If you can teach them to regulate those triggers and teach them the truth about the gaslighting that they're hearing from the narcissist, you'll get nothing. I'm going to take the children. You try to divorce me, I'll take it all, right? Those things freeze people. What's the truth? That's not the way the law works, honey. What's the truth? You know what? You have this right. You're going to be okay. This is how much you guys have. You'll get a split. Don't worry. It doesn't matter what they're telling you. They are trying to gaslight you into fear. And again, by having someone on their team that goes, that's one way to look at it, but that's not how the law works. Now they can come back to center and not be as fearful every day they work.
Right.
Wonderful.
I think
Wonderful.
it's important for them also to know that to many employees, even though the chaos is going on at home, work is still a place of feeling relative calm, and that we they need to know that work is a safe place, right? Even though the rest of my life may not be safe, at least I know at work I'm safe. And they don't need to, share and get into the drudges of it. But at least knowing that, at least when I'm here, I feel grounded and safe. We can get ready to
Supported. Yeah.
They feel supported. It's really important that they have that.
Support, absolutely. Well, one last thing. I know that you're writing a parenting plan, a course. So why don't you give us a little bit about that? And I'm going to put your website up on the screen if you guys should happen to want to reach out to Tracy for this. She can support you and your employees. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the parenting plan that you've got for these types of families?
Sure. So I've started the need for this because I coach so many people, not only going through divorce, but co-parenting nightmares too. This could happen. How do we prevent it in the people who haven't gone there yet? If they're going to rewrite it, how can they enforce it? Because they've been doing this behavior. We have to put something in that protects us from that, right? So I started my research. I read 18 books. I took every single course. I'm reading and studying state plans and clients' plans and going, why do the people that spend $500 get a really horrible, bad plan when someone who spent thousands get something that protects them? Why can't we tell them, like McDonald's, here's all your choices, what would you like? Again, you don't have a military partner, fine, you don't need that lesson, right? You don't have a special needs kids, you don't need that. But forward thinking and making sure that people know how to stop post-divorce abuse. And that's how we do it, is we give them boundaries. I have a chapter in my book called The Gray Areas of Divorce. And this is the gray areas of the divorce parenting plan. If it doesn't say when they have to bring them home for Christmas, they're just not going to. If they don't say you have to pay for braces or glasses or any kind of things our kid needs, they're going to tell you, and Vicki will testify to this, I don't have to pay for braces. It doesn't say that.
Right.
So think of the what ifs. Your kid's 4, they might need glasses. Let's just put the word, if we have glasses or braces, that we just agree to split it. If you don't think about it, a narcissist will abuse every single line and you'll go back to court. Conflict resolution policies are my huge, scream from the mountain, because most of them say, well, if they can't agree, they'll go back to court. I'm like, what? That's not an option. The narcissist is going to not agree and financially ruin their partner just because they want revenge.
And they won't show up.
Right? So it's putting things in that protect you and stop post-divorce abuse. Because if you don't do it, you're going to be like those co-parenting people that are like, this is my life. How do I fix it? Right? Well, the ones I can save are the ones that haven't been there yet, and the ones that are going to go back to court and redo the parenting plan. And then they've got smarter things to do to know how to stop this. Because this is an 18-year death sentence of pain and agony over and over. But if you put the things in there to protect yourself, and it's not just for narcissists, it's for everybody. Everybody think about, how will we discipline? Well, we're not going to say you can't do this, you can't do that, but let's agree that we won't hit the kid or throw them off the second floor window. That's a pretty nice thing to just agree to, right? It's just thinking about these things. If we all agree, then their lives for the children and the families will be stronger. So that's my soapbox.
Well, I look forward to reading it, to having it available to the clients that we see. And Tracy, thank you so much for this conversation today. It was really, really important. Like we said, the three of us have been through this, and practically everybody that I know that's in this world now trying to make a difference has had an experience with a narcissistic ex. And we are all on a mission because of it, right? That there is a better way to get through this process. So thank you so much for joining us. Paulette, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to wish you all a very happy holiday season. We're going to be off for the next 2 weeks, but we'll be back in the new year, bringing you some more information on how you can support your employees as they go through the divorce process. They need you. They need guidance and direction. And if we can support your employees, please reach out to me, and let's have a conversation about adding our suite of services to your benefits packages for your employees. They need this more than you know. So thank you so much. And we'll see you all next time. Happy New Year, everybody. Bye for now.